Yeah. Yeah. So I got into this because I realized I was completely lost and nobody had any answers for me. Everywhere I went, it was either stuff that I just immediately just threw away. I was like, this is stupid. This isn't gonna work. Like ego block and stuff, or it was just outright bullshit. Like being told once, like if I have a panic attack. So I went to school late. I pretty much looked like this. I was bigger, and not as much gray, but so my shrink at the VA told me if I have a panic attack in class to rub my legs under the desk and whisper to myself, be like, "Shh, I'm okay." And I'm like, that is the creepiest thing I have ever heard in my life. And I'm looking like this, and I have two daughters. If I knew there was a dude that and looking completely angry all the time,
Yeah.
looking like that, rubbing his legs under the desk and just whispering sweet little affirmations to himself, I'd be like, no, this guy needs to be arrested. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you know that is such like, I mean, a good question, because you would figure that something like that, especially with veterans that are a little bit more like rough around the edges, a lot of them, that's not going to fly, but they're stuck. Like I heard this one thing about when we have a belief system, it creates a box, and we're in that box from A to Z. That's our boundaries, and we can't go outside that. So they have this belief system of this is what works. So they can't bend or be flexible or work with people, and that's one of the biggest issues at the VA. Is a lot of times the veteran will then be blamed. They're uncooperative, resisting treatment, anger issues, all this stuff. I even had to go to patient advocacy once, and I heard also another guy at a different time going through the same thing, where the advocate who's supposed to be helping to fight for the veteran is defending the doctor, the hospital, and just sort of twisting things around and siding completely with the other side. So there was a mix up in medications when I was on those, and she ended up just giving me the same thing. And the weird thing was I had one of the medications, but not the second one. And they said they couldn't fill the second one. I'm like, well, how did you get this one? And they're like, we don't know. I'm like, well, like the order apparently is there. Like, fill it,
Yeah.
or call the doctor. I ended up having to spend like 3 hours there. We're doing all this running around myself to find the doctor, all this stuff. And the patient advocate was just telling me like I had anger management issues,
Oh
like
my
just
god.
turning it all back around on me. So I mean, and it does create this frustrating space because you're not being heard at
Oh
all,
my gosh.
you know?
It's like a maddening. It's just like it's like you're being put in an insane asylum, but like like everyone's calling you crazy. Yeah, and you're just like, no, this is madness. Jeez.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. I mean, and my experience and in my opinion, the VA is for the most part professional gaslighters.
Mm.
They know how the mind works, and they know how to twist things around to make you think like seriously something is wrong with
Wow.
me. Beyond what the issues that you're there for.
Yeah.
Um, so I decided I'm going to find my own way out. Um, and while I was going to school, I was studying anthropology, and that just I decided I can use the same thing. So the study like human culture, where I can look at my mind as its own culture and find the traditions and find the belief systems and find the like study the history of it. And from that, I learned that when we come out of the military, it's a cultural transition going into the military, and coming out, you don't have any transitional process that goes on. So when you go in, basic training teaches you the basics of fighting, but teaches you how to talk to superior officers, NCOs, COs, how to salute, how to stand, how to tell time, how to write the date. you learn an entirely new way of being. But when you leave, you just go back into the civilian world. So we're back in the civilian world with this veteran mindset, but we're in the civilian world. So we're in this state of being between these two worlds, and we're just kind of lost. You recognize everything physically, but unconsciously something's off.
Mm,
And so it's this identity shift that has to happen. And then I spent because I thought in the beginning, I know I'm rambling too.
no.
I just smoked some of my medication, so cut me off at
The
this
stuff that
time.
works, right?
Uh,
The good the good stuff.
yeah, oh dude. After I found coaching, yeah, so I thought coaching was the biggest scam on the earth. It was con men saying cliches to people that were hurt, and then demanding their money. But when I started looking into it, doing my research for my senior thesis, I started seeing like there's science behind some of this stuff. There's definitely some of the cliche people out there, but there's some science behind this stuff too. And I started practicing different strategies and seeing results almost immediately. Whereas in therapy, I would talk, leave, wouldn't think about anything for the week, and then wait until the next appointment the next week and then talk about it again. So I realized like with my anger, which was out of control prior to this, I didn't have an anger problem. I had a mastery of it because I practiced it every opportunity that I had. And I became so good at it, I destroyed my family.
Mm.
Luckily, because they're awesome, we got me and my wife got remarried 3 years after we separated, and then like 1 year divorced, and now we're about to hit like 30 years total.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, congrats.
yeah, she's yeah, freaking saint, man. So, whoa, my brain just took a hard laugh, dude. I have no, what was I talking about, man?
We were just talking transit like therapy, how, you really
Mm,
weren't connecting and then you started doing this coaching, your anger.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. And then after that, cannabis was the thing that helped me really make that shift. Because I did about 2 years of research on it prior to using it because I grew up very strict Baptist, and so I thought like this. In fact, what I was taught was if you use it, it opens up your mind to demon possession. And then when I did all this research behind it and stuff like that and saw what we can do with it, I started just practicing gratitude while I was smoking. And I would be watching like a show, or whatever. I'd be crying like a baby at parts and stuff and be like, this is so beautiful, man. Like it connected me back in my heart instead of up in my head, and then just practicing that, like everything shifted. So I was like, you know what, let's see if we can start something. And if any of this can help one other person, then it's gold.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what when you started doing the study of yourself, of your mind, you mentioned you were looking into texts and different books and sources. Like, where did you go to that got you to the foundation where you could begin like coaching, or what whether techniques or practices or certain people's modalities that you used over others when you first started this, and how has that evolved?
Yeah, so I strictly start or just Porky Pig that. Jeez. I in the beginning, when I get nervous, I like stammer a little bit, so I apologize if I do that.
No
But
worries.
I always get nervous, like even talking about it. In the beginning, I was strictly science based. Through school, we had access to like academic research databases and stuff, and I would only use that. And so my professor told me like you got to look at the other healing modalities that are out there, even if you don't agree with them.
Mm.
See what they have to offer, why you don't agree, so that you can present an argument as to why you go the way that you do. When I looked into coaching, the only coach that I ever heard of was Tony Robbins. And so I bought his first book, and that was the thing that opened my eyes. because there was a point. I even remember where we were driving, coming down, we were taking a right onto the street that leads up to my house, and I started having a panic attack. My wife was driving, and I just did one of these visualizations that he described in the book. I visualized the anxiety. I just let my mind paint a picture too. And it was, for me, it was this black background, the word anxiety, almost like a horror movie type script, like all drippy, blood red.
Yeah.
And then I just pushed it away. So I visualized like the Grand Canyon, and it was on this other side. And I just kept in my mind pushing it further and further away until it became this pinpoint, and then I allowed myself in my mind to imagine hearing this snap as it just went away, disappeared. And while that within 30 seconds, my panic attack was gone. And those would normally last like 15, 20 minutes. And then just the reciprocal anxiety, that is just flooding my system, could last hours. And I was just completely calm and at ease. So I decided to sign up for his course. It was funny too because me and my wife, we like big purchases. We always, talk to each other about, and I knew that she would be like, no, because it was like I think like $3,500 at the time
Yeah.
for his like it was like the one first 100 hours, and right, yeah, yeah. I mean, you see all the miracles that like people like claim and stuff from him and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be like one of those cases. And so I put it on the credit card and I told her when she got home. And like 2 days later, she let me back in the house. And no, yeah, she was pissed. But now she's grateful for it. And I did it specifically just to learn more for myself. Because what I attributed to it from what I was learning in my research about consciousness and identity, and then seeing how he was working with that and seeing how what he's basically doing is creating this identity shift in people, or and teaching people how to create that shift in themselves, how to understand their identity on a conscious level instead of on this unconscious level where it's just sort of it's driving, but you don't even know it's in control, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of rebuild, to walk myself back down to my civilian mindset from that military identity. And I do have some issues with some of his stuff, like the business stuff. I don't get too much into. And mainly just because I've seen people that have gotten into that and then they become very self-centered,
Hmm.
um, almost like, I mean, going completely against the values that they say they stand on. So I don't like to dabble into that stuff, but this like the beginning stuff, like I mean, I freaking love it, dude. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I've learned that it's just like growth rings in a tree, or even like sediment build up in the earth. Like you can tell where, there's more sediment, there was a time of flooding, and then when it's compacted, it tells a different story. When it's normal, it's just sort of the normal like seasons and stuff. So it's, but the growth happens always in different ways and always at different times. And I think that it's allowing that intuition, which I'm becoming to believe that that's sort of like the energy of consciousness. You know, um, that's the thing. Back in my Bible days, they would call it the still small voice of the Holy Spirit. And I think what that is just following, like you said, that intuition, which is so funny because I'm going through the same thing myself right now. Learning to follow more of that instead of like what I have to do.
Hmm.
You know, so I think it's so important to do exactly what you're doing to allow the growth to happen when it's going to happen. There's going to be times where you get into a phase like the reading and learning, listen to podcasts, video, whatever it is, and you're just going to consume all that stuff. And then you're going to hit a phase where you're like, all right, now I'm done with that. I'm tired of it. You know, and I think that is, we see that as a phase of like stepping back, but I think that's the most important part. That's the phase of integration, because you've taken all of this stuff that you've learned. And then, because normally, at least for me, like when I do that, I start putting puzzle pieces together. I'll take a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, and then I make it my own thing, and so when I do that, it takes me a while to learn to say it, even to myself, in the way that makes the most sense. Like I just it just happened with one with PTSD. If I was for me, if I was going to describe what PTSD feels like on a day-to-day basis, it would be constantly trying to predict the future based off your past experiences to control the present moment. So you're never in just the moment.
Yeah.
You're always in the future from a past perspective, and the intention is to gain control over everything that is happening right now, but you're never right now.
Yeah.
So I just learned to say that, and I'm like, that makes so much sense to me. So now that I have the message down that I learned from all these different sources, now I can go into that new growth ring of integrating that into my being. So what that teaches me is that I need to stop, playing the hip hopping with time travel in my head, and just work on being present. Putting my focus more on my senses instead of my thoughts that are trying to predict this future outcome.
I think what's
You know what I
super,
mean?
yeah.
So,
I think what's super interesting
and
too is,
that's what I try to do with my clients. Just work through that, and when they need me, I'm here. I always tell them my goal is to not have to talk to you. Again.
yeah, yeah,
I don't want that to happen. I always want to like be friends, like know what's going on. But when they need me, I'm here. When they don't, I don't even like ghost me. I don't care. Like, but when you need me, I'm here. Like I want to be the constant, for them. And I found that for a few of them, like that's what works best. We go through this period of growth, like then they integrate it, they practice it, they make it their own, and then they'll come up against something else. So it's a new growth ring that forms, because it's that new time for growth, and we just do the same thing.
you do you coach primarily um, vets and people who say they PTSD, or is it a range of different types of people?
Yeah, now that since starting off, because I started off fast, and then I realized I don't have a freaking clue of what I'm doing, so I pulled back. And now that I'm going back out there, almost like a relaunch type thing. I'm going very slow.
Yeah,
So in the beginning, I just worked with anybody and everybody. And I am definitely open to doing that. I mean, because like trauma's not, we all have it.
right.
Even somebody that has lived the most luxurious life. I mean, even Buddha, when before he became Buddha, like, I mean, his father kept him, in this compound where he couldn't see the heartache that was beyond the walls, the disease and the death and stuff, so he lived a pretty cushiony life. But then when he did leave those walls and see the disease that was right there, I mean, that was traumatizing. But like, if I've gone through all this stuff, I can play the trauma competition game, be like, you haven't been through shit, like you don't
Right.
know anything, and but we can't. I think it's Viktor Frankl that talks about like trauma has the nature of gas. If you put gas in any size container, it swells until it fills the entire container. So whatever anybody's been through, that is the worst they've ever experienced, no matter what anybody else has
Right.
been through.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. So I work with anybody, but my passion is definitely veterans, because there is, the whole saying in the military, never leave a man behind. Like, that should not end when our military contract
Mm,
ends.
yeah. Oh
You
man.
know, and that ball has been dropped.
Yeah.
So something has to be done. So I mean, what better way to do it than, I mean, that's what we do in the military. We take what we have and we make that work. If they're not doing it, we'll find our own way.
Yeah. I'm asked 'cause I was curious because like you said, you know, we all have to some degree some kind of trauma, and the word trauma has been thrown, or so many different definitions, and it's largely weighted to like catastrophic events. And I think more and more
Yeah.
now we're starting to realize that, all of us do have some level of it. And I think like what you're talking about, this hypervigilance, trying to predict the future and, not being allowed to be in the present. I think as a modern society, especially as Americans, I don't know what percentage it is, but 90% of us are I think in that state. It's like a to some level, and I think what we call it is like a general anxiety. I think so many of us, it's so chronic that we don't even notice it. And
Yeah.
I think Mike and I, our stories, we have what most people would consider an ideal childhood, right? A typical American life, supportive parents, no major traumatic events, but yet our stories are really around, well, why are we still experiencing some things that are unusual, right? Why do we have anxiety? Why is there depression? And what you're talking about, this hypervigilance, is something that I personally, experienced through adult life. And it's not due to anything catastrophic, right? It's just, and it's, we can attribute to a lot of things, but it's largely through childhood and, the systems that we've kind of created for ourselves as a society. But all of us are going through this. So anyway, I speak to that because, like, I think what you're saying and the coaching that you're doing will apply to everybody. Everybody can
Yeah.
benefit from the stuff that you're doing, that you've done for yourself. And I think it's really cool when somebody has taken it entirely, really entirely on themselves almost, and are like, I'm gonna figure this out, because that's like the best teacher to have. Like like you're just like, I'm gonna sit down and figure this shit out, like
Yes.
like I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna trust anybody else to tell me what's going on. So like, yeah, yeah, I think that's a pretty powerful
Yeah.
place to be in. And for somebody who's working with you, I think that's a pretty, um, a pretty awesome mentor, a pretty awesome coach to have, and someone that you like, yeah, you could trust. Is like, yeah, this guy's gonna give me a pretty authentic truth of what he went through and how he can possibly guide me to help me out of what I'm doing.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah. And that was the biggest lesson I learned through doing that. Because in the beginning I was pissed. So I was like, why do I have to do this? When there's a whole industry built around a profession that are experts in this. And what I come to realize is that, I mean, we're all different. So what worked for me is not going to work for you. And it's all about going in. Our answers are not out there. We don't have to wait for Amazon to deliver happiness or contentment to our porch. We're not gonna we're gonna find it inside. So
Mhm.
I always tell everybody, I always get yelled at too, especially like social media people. They're like, you can't say that, dude. Like, like, or marketing people. But what I have to offer is meaningless. So it's completely worthless, but if you could take something and apply it to, you can build something that is priceless, from that. And that's what we do. We like you were talking about, like there's like taking from all these different sources, like in that reading phase, and that's what we do. We take all of that stuff and then we integrate it into our identity, into our foundation. And that's what I was so interested in what you were talking about with what you guys are doing, on Jared's class, like, because you guys are going to develop like wellness centers, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I like tell I can't even imagine what that would look like. Like, what would it be like? Like a Reiki studio, a massage parlor, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just kind of, I was gonna ask before we're diving into that. I just wanted to ask you, like, what does the inside of a VA hospital like feel like? What is, like, what does it look like? Like, what?
Like, I think in my mind, because of my bias, like I make it look like an insane, like one of those like 1950s horror insane asylum type things, like peeling paint on the wall. But it's, I mean, it's not the most up to date thing, but it's just the hospital itself it's just like a normal like hospital. Like mine is a little bit older because it's like an older building, but they're making upgrade. Well, they were at least making upgrades. I don't know if they still are. Um, but the feeling though, that is interesting because it feels dark,
Mm,
you know, uh, because like when you go there, all you see is just sickness, like everywhere. And which that's not the problem. Like, but the answer is this medication. And I was leaving one day and I saw a guy across from my car, and he would walk up to cars and he would put his hand on the door and then like take it off and then put his thumb like on the windshield and just start touching different parts of the car. And then he would go to another car and do the same thing. And he went, and I was just like watching him like, what is this dude doing? And then this couple came out, and he was just so happened to be at their truck putting his hand on stuff and then trying the door handle and stuff. And so I got out of my car because I didn't know if like this dude was like, I didn't know if he was like gonna just flip out. He was apparently like having some type of psychotic issue, or uh, not that I can diagnose him
yeah.
or anything like that, but like he was definitely seeing things that weren't there. Um, and so I went up to the guy and I was just like, are you okay? And he said that he couldn't remember which car was his, but that he should be able to touch the car and the door would open.
Mm,
So, but he was the most like just friendly, easygoing. I mean, friendly is the wrong word because he was scared. But just like not a threat in any
yeah.
way. So I'm like, why don't we go back in, and maybe one of the doctors like can help you find your car, because I just wanted him to get someplace safe. So we walked back in, but at that time, somebody else had already had called the cops. So the VA has their own police force, and like five cops come up, and they got their hands on their gun. I mean, they were ready to go, and I'm like, dude, just relax. But again, like there's this us versus them type of feel to the whole thing, like where the veterans are the enemy and the employees are the enemy for the veteran, so there's this complete divide where there's no community, it's
Yeah.
one against the other. And so the guy, he gets into the cop car, but before he did, and this dude looked like he was like in the first Gulf War, he was even like older than me. He grabbed my hand and pulled me into the car with him. And when I told that story for like a couple years after, like I would always cry at this point because this guy that would be, thank you for your service, seen as like this manly guy, tough guy. He is so petrified. He's grabbing a stranger's hand and just for comfort.
Mm.
And we get him back inside into the emergency room, and the doctors take my statement, and then it's just, sorry, see you later. So I have no idea what happened. I hope the guy's okay, but that's the sort of feel to the whole
Yeah.
place. It just, those are my worst days.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like you think about the folks who have endured probably some of the hardest, most challenging, terrifying experiences of their life serving, serving a country. And then when they seek, help for, some of the things that are going on in their life afterwards, coming back into, the more pedestrian life, and this is what they're met with, right? Like how tragic is that? Just it's I mean, it's almost like it's hard to comprehend almost that like you can
Yeah.
never put yourself, if you haven't been there, you can never put yourself in those shoes, but like if you were in that position and you're like, "Oh my God, like here's where I am right now. Like I'm here because of, I'm serving my country, yet now now a gun's being pointed in my face. I don't know where my car is. I'm whatever it is, just like these these severe circumstances. Yeah, and it's like this is how you're met back into the real, into reality after something like that. Yeah, oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rough. And I went to a committee hearing at our state legislature. They were doing a bill about psilocybin, and open it up to the public and everything. So it's the first time I ever did this, but I went to give my little 3-minute testimony before the committee before they killed the bill, and just talked about how much it can help veterans. I mean, just from the research that's coming out, and then also I experimented a lot on myself because I didn't have anybody that could guide me. I couldn't afford any of the coaches that I saw out there. I could not afford anybody. So it was just all kind of experimenting with myself, and I said at the committee, like, don't at a certain point, thank you for your service becomes hollow. It becomes
Mm.
almost like this stab, when at least in my experience and some of the people I've talked to, when you hear it, because there's a whole side that is not looked at, and it's not seen because it's not everyday, life. Like you said, like, not every day, you're not going to the VA hospital or driving by it or something. But when you're in it, it's it's a very dehumanizing feeling, where it's almost like you know that you're right, but people are trying to convince you that you're wrong about something. They wanted to put me on, and I did go on it for about 2 months. This medication called Depakote, right? It's an anti-convulsive, I think, for seizures, but it also has some the mood stabilizing stuff. And this was the same shrink that told me to rub my legs and whisper to myself. And she said, the only thing about it is it can damage your liver. And so you have to come once a month to have blood drawn to make sure that your liver enzymes are at the levels they should be. So I said to her, I don't want to be on a medication that's that harmful. And she said, because what they were trying to do is they were trying to tell me I did not have PTSD, I was bipolar. So she was, I mean, they were really pushing this bipolar thing, and that's a very common thing. They'll push this other diagnosis, and you really have to fight
Oh.
to say, like, no, like what I went through caused some issues.
What is
Um,
that like? Is there a reason for that? Like, does it allow them
Money,
to, okay.
yeah, because if I get diagnosed by the VA with PTSD, and this is all my opinion, like I don't have proof that this
Yeah.
was about, but I mean this is what makes sense for me. Um, I can now put in a claim for disability. And after Iraq and Afghanistan, when those wars kicked off, you had a huge jump in disability claims because, like, the men and women from those theaters were coming home, and they were getting the claims, but then other people were also jumping in and saying, "Oh, I didn't know we can do this." So, like, I never even heard about PTSD until, like, yeah, I think shortly after the wars kicked off. You know, because we were the first American troops into Bosnia, and I haven't gone through what the men and women of today have gone through, but just the little bit that I did just sort of twisted me. But you learn new things, so you're like, oh, I didn't know that was an option. So let me try it. So yeah, the VA, there's a lot of money that goes out in claims, you know, in disability claims. So to me, that's one of the ways to kind of for them to fight against that is by saying like, no, 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 this has nothing. In fact, this is what I was told is this has nothing to do with my military service. This is all prior from prior service. In fact, I was even told it was I had to mourn the loss of my innocence, and that I should go to a grief group with people who have just lost loved ones and be like, yeah, when I was 20, I lost my innocence and I never mourned that. Like
What?
to me, that's so disrespectful. Yeah, yeah. So when I told her I don't want to be on that medication, she said, she's like, yeah, see, that's paranoia. That's a sign of bipolar.
Oh my God.
And I'm like,
Are you serious?
it's yeah,
Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
yeah. So
Oh,
yeah, so I went on the medication, and then 2 months later, I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
yeah.
You know, like I only have one liver as far as I know. I mean, I'll have to Google it, but um, yeah, I don't want to destroy that.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, mhm, good.
Just like lame furniture and like it just they're just like stupid, you know? Like yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
be really blunt. Like they're just like horrible spaces. Like
yeah, Dude, that is, I have like goosebumps. That's something that I've never thought of in the least, but it makes so much sense. I was just watching this documentary on Göbekli Tepe, and that was the first space that was built for ceremonial purposes, and so yeah, I mean, like literally the first space that is built for this purpose of like growing community and like what they were doing there. And I believe they're finding that it was a burial. So there's grief, there's healing going on. And so they build this space and create like the first religion from that. I mean, architecture just through the ages has always been a massive thing. That is beautiful, man. And then like I love what you both like talked about, where almost like this question of like, why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't, because I have the textbook, childhood that says I should be good,
Mm.
but I feel anxiety. And like you said, like they make it into a disorder. One of the first lessons that I was able to integrate into myself that I learned that blew my mind was we have this negativity bias built in that is encoded into our DNA from when we were hunter gatherers like 400,000 years ago. You know, because if we weren't looking for the predator, then we're dead. So it ensured our survival by being negative. So now today, when we live in the comfort that we live in, for the most part, there's something off. So like you said, there's like this low level anxiety that goes on because that's not the way we evolved to live, not in this fashion,
Yeah.
in any way. Plus all the other circumstances that are involved with the experiences that we had. So I think number one, your message along that, because I think we can, especially guys, like we can really shame and guilt ourselves into shutting up, and saying like I shouldn't feel this way because I haven't gone through this or whatever our reasoning is. So I'm not going to I'm not looking for help, not going to therapy, not going to try to better. Like I just shouldn't. You shove it down and then it just becomes toxic. So and then what you guys are doing, like, oh my God, man, that is freaking amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. And I mean, you talk about this kind of negativity bias and fear, and there's so much of that. It's so pervasive in our society and our culture, and it has been with us for millennia. And I think where we're at now, though, is there's there's a tipping point happening where we're realizing, this fear and anxiety and the survival instinct is a natural part of who we are, and it's necessary for
Yeah.
specific situations. But you look at nature and the mammals in the animal kingdom when they're stressed or under fear and survival, like that's their life, right? When we look out at those animals, we're like, well, they should be stressed out all the time, right? Like here's a deer, like why is this deer so peaceful? But like they're experts at just shaking that stress off. I mean, you can
Yeah.
watch animals, and so like that's what you were alluding to too, is like especially in men, we don't know how to shake it off, right? We've been taught how not to shake it off. We've been taught how to just swallow, right? Tense your jaw, swallow it down, hold it in, and then there's this. So it's created a lot of dis-ease in our whole culture. I mean, literally, like they literally shake it off. Yeah. 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 We're like, I'm not,
Yeah.
for humans, I'm saying like shake it off for us would mean like talking about it, like vocalizing the fear, the anxiety, the trauma. Uh, yeah. And so Matt, yeah, totally. Yeah. 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 Totally. And I mean, I think too, just like one of the things, Keith, that when we get into the kind of the design aspects of these buildings and the aesthetics, it's like a lot of us are at a level of fear and anxiety, and some of us are just terrified at what's going on, if we are really not well. And so these spaces that you're referencing, but the VA and even just most of our clinics or doctors offices and hospitals, even holistic healthcare providers, even some of them have, a lot of them just have really unappealing spaces. And so the idea, the concept of creating spaces that elicit this sense of calm and peace welcome environment, almost like a home, right? You walk into a home and you're like, okay, like, all right, like I can relax, like I can chill, and like that's the state where you can actually begin to heal. Like you cannot heal when you're in that fight or flight freeze state. Like it's impossible. You have to be in that rest and digest, that relaxed state. But
Yep.
there's
Yep.
this kind of other end of the spectrum too, which um, is like this transcendent awe and wonder side of the world. And I think so much of that has been uh, missed in our modern paradigm of health and science because we're stuck in the material, like the reductionist materialist realm where everything is matter, right? And so what's cool now is we're seeing this, we call it spirituality, right? But it's just more of an understanding of the reality that we're in. That's what it is. And so quantum physics and consciousness and this forefront of this new science is showing us just like what what Eastern traditions have said all along, is like how powerful and how amazing this reality is. And it's cool to see that science, right, is catching up to this this really awe-inspiring story of what humanity is, and that also needs to be captured in this healing process, right, in the journey of life. And so it expands us beyond this state of fear and stress and anxiety and into a place of, a complete abundance of freedom, and it's like
Yep.
in that state, there is no disease, right? There is no health conditions if you're in this state of abundance and like, pure gratitude and awareness to what like the reality of the universe is. And I think like our healthcare system does not understand that at all, like whatsoever. Like there's not an ounce of that in our healthcare system. So like
Yeah.
we really want to, and it needs to be captured in the designs of the buildings that we create for whatever health, healing campus it is.
So are you guys architects,
No, no.
or just going to be designing them? Which I even think, because especially in this day and age with like AI and stuff, like I think like college and stuff is going to become a thing of the past like pretty
Yeah,
quickly. I mean, especially with the cost of it and stuff like that. So yeah, so you guys are just gonna be like, what got you into that? Like, what made you look at and be like, you know what, we're gonna start with the buildings? Because that is just that fascinates me.
we uh we both applied to architecture school and didn't make it. So
Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring that
no, no,
up.
it's not a sensitive subject at all. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I just think it's funny to mention that where we're at now and doing that. But yeah, I went into commercial real estate. So I was a broker in commercial real estate. Yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, I've been doing that for my entire career. Mike's been doing construction and development for his entire career, and it was yeah, I mean we don't have to go into how we turned it into what we're doing now, but yeah, it was, for me it was definitely some encouragement from Mike. He was actually a step ahead in all of this, and he forced me to do 6 or 7 grams of psilocybin, and then after that, my life changed forever. So
Nice,
no,
nice,
it's much deeper than that. Yeah, the old, yeah.
nice. Oh yeah, yeah. You're the good, the big spiritual leader. Yeah, and teacher. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
beautiful, dude. I love that at least when I tell this story, I'm gonna say the mushrooms gave you the
yeah, yeah.
idea.
It's just it's a better story that way, but
Yeah, yeah. You guys were like, you guys were on this big like easel. Like what do they like draw like all the blueprints on and stuff, the drafting
yeah,
boards? Yeah, Yeah, you just had this conversation with this like animistic drafting board. It's pretty cool,
Yeah,
man.
and just came to life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but we
That freaking yeah. Yeah. Did you guys ever see there was this trend on going around like social media where they use chat GPT to draw what life would look like if we worked with nature instead of against it.
yeah.
And some of the like drawings were amazing. Like the buildings like coming out of trees and like, and it feels like it's like almost you guys are doing the same thing, except on a, like an energetic level where it like comes to healing, like a thing where it's just it's about everything is designed with the intention of healing in mind instead of how it's designed today with the intention of making money, for the corporations that own the hospitals and all the wellness stuff now. That's amazing, dude. Jeez. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah, I remember seeing a thing. I think it's like in China and Japan and stuff. Like the scaffolding they make is from bamboo. So they'll have scaffolding that's like hundreds of feet high, like up a skyscraper and stuff, and they're working, but and it bends and sways with the wind, but it won't snap, and then it's all organic material, right? So that it'll just like you said, just return to the earth when you're done.
yeah. Even in Japan, like the care that they take to relocate trees is immense. Yeah, I mean, in Japan, they do things, you know, it's very cool to watch some, like, especially some of their construction methodologies. And but yeah, they'll take
Mm.
massive trees and they'll dig huge pits around the roots just to relocate it for building structures. And it's like, can you imagine doing that here? I mean, I'm sure it's done every once in a while, but like, like, it's like, no. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, people go crazy. You know how much money that's gonna cost?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Although I will say,
So
in
do you?
Seattle, they do freak out about trees. That's where I live. So there's places that are,
Oh, do okay.
yeah, they'll just there's certain rules, like if a tree gets a certain circumference around, you can't cut it down. For
Oh,
like for commercial construction in the city of Seattle. Yeah, they won't let you cut down trees after they're a certain length. So anyway, so there are places that are doing certain things, but for the most part, you just
pretty cool.
cut them down, put pave it over, and put a parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's funny, and again, because talking about like that, the wonder of the world, like being starting able to see that, the more I get into this stuff, like the more things change. Like now, I bring bugs outside the house, and I make fun of myself when I'm doing it. You know, like I used to be so petrified of spiders for some reason, but I'll like pick them up gently and just like I'm still scared to death of them because I know that bitch is gonna bite me and lay eggs in my skin, and they're gonna all hatch when I'm sleeping. Um, so yeah, but we've had to take down like 3 or 4 trees. So like two of them were dying, and then two like for the insurance company was gonna like not insure like our house and stuff. So we, because they were so close, where if they came down, they would just land on the house. So but I was like devastated, and we have another one that looks like it's dying because one of the roots kind of pops up, and my wife just kind of stepped over it, and the whole thing just cracked. And so it almost looks like it was like kind of hollowed out for by something. So some branches starting to fall, and I'm like, I don't want to take down another tree, man. Like I'm becoming like the tree hugger eating granola. Well, not, I haven't gotten to the granola yet. That'll probably be next, but oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
No,
That's pretty cool.
I caught myself doing some similar stuff, Keith, with flies and ants, and I'm just like, what? Yeah, I'm like, I even like I shame myself one time because I was trying to sleep, and there was a fly that just started like buzzing in the middle of the night, and I was like, whack! I just got up and I was really tired. I was sleeping with my 1 year old, and I was just trying to whack it, and I was like, stopped myself in the middle of it, and I was just like, what am I doing? I was just like, what? I can't do this. And so yeah, I was actually able to like drape like the towel over it without killing it so that it like couldn't fly around. And then in the morning I let it go. Yeah, but it was like I just was
Nice.
like, oh, I can't. And in the morning I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really am becoming this like nature lover. Yeah, and I
Yeah, yeah. That is so funny. That is so hysterical. Yeah. Yeah, because I get, man, like growing up, I remember like in the churches that we went to, like we were proud about how much we hated people. And especially because we had the absolute truth. Like
hmm
everybody else just doesn't get it. And one of the preachers that came in, he said his as a joke, but still, I mean, he still like he would definitely, I think he would definitely do it, but he said he wanted to kill the last spotted owl just to piss off environmentalists.
Oh,
And and it was like that thing, it was just like no care concern about nature. And then as I'm doing this work on myself, and I'm growing, and I'm becoming softer. No, I don't even like that word because it's not like a softness, because a lot of people equate this with like a weakness, but it's not. It's I feel even like more powerful because I don't have to lose my mind off of something that is so small. anymore. Whereas before, that little tiny thing would control my entire day, whatever that is. In fact, one time I lost it so bad because sheet music of The Little Mermaid, my kids came home from school, and this was like 25 years ago, and somebody brought this sheet music in. Nobody has owned up to it to this day, and the investigation is still open. But I was like, asked both my girls, like, is this yours? They're like, no. And so I got so mad. I called my wife at work, asked her if that was hers. She said no. And then I started screaming at my wife and my two girls about elves who broke in, printed out Little Mermaid sheet music, left it on the counter, just like, so someone's lying to me. So it's all about that control, like over something so small,
Yeah.
but that sheet music had complete control of me,
Mm, right.
and the more I grow, like the more I become like just more gentle to things, like I appreciate the life in a fly, in an ant, in a tree, so much more because I see the miracle that all life is now instead of just solely focused only on myself and my material wants and needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I think that's the profound shift too, is yeah, as you come deeper into your knowing, into yourself, into who you truly are, and you're softening into that. It's like the beauty of the world just comes alive in
Yeah.
everything, but there is such an immense amount of beauty that just comes up in absolutely everything. And like that is, I mean, it's almost, it's like, so it's so important too. It's such a valuable thing. It's such a wonderful thing to experience. And then everything else becomes just irrelevant, right? The money, your house, these material things, like work, having a job where you have to, ask somebody to go on vacation, like all these things you start to realize too are just so, there's so many ridiculous things that you've been participating in. And I think going into like, as the simple things become more beautiful, the other systems that we've built up in our lives, in our society, become a little bit more ridiculous. And it's like that's the path, really, like that, this path, that self-knowing, that understanding who you truly are, getting in touch and softening into who you are. Like that's how we start to change these really rigid and dogmatic systems that have been in place for a really, really long time. And
Yeah.
yeah, so like this inner journey is such a powerful thing for you as the person going through it, but it also is just a piece, a key in the overall transformation of our society as a whole, of humanity as a whole.
Yeah. Dude, all right, let me ask you guys this. Do you think that there is this growing number of people coming into this awareness, or because I fight with this because it seems like more and more people are finding that same awareness, like this the system is hurting me bad, getting out of it, learning how to like get more into the flow of life instead of the control that we're all governed by right now, or is it just an echo chamber that makes it appear to be so much bigger than it really is?
Yeah.
Mm,
I think it's definitely changing on like
mm,
a more widespread scale. I definitely think that it is. I mean, you just look at, even if you look at TV, and how often like meditation is mentioned in TV now. It's like it's kind of commonplace. Whereas maybe even 5, 10 years ago, no, like meditation was still looked at as kind of one of the woo woo kind of, it would be made fun of in a movie or a TV show. So I think, and then you like the examples that I think are interesting too are the like podcasts or authors, sources of this new kind of spiritual esque type information. There, if you look at their followers and the growth of, I'm thinking of this one podcast called Next Level Soul. Have you heard of that? It's this
No, no.
it's this guy, Alex. I think his name's Alex Ferrari or something, and he interviews channelers, mediums, near-death experiencers, astrologists. All that what people would have called like new age kind of woo-woo stuff. And he's been at it for maybe 5 years or more, and he like his following has like skyrocketed. I think on YouTube he has over 1 million followers. He's he's translated into like 5 different languages across the world, and so it's like those kind of examples where you're like, okay, this would not exist 20 years ago. These people would not
Yeah.
exist on this level. And you look at like Dolores Cannon, who started her her work in the it was so like in the 60s maybe, and she was the only one doing it. And she passed away maybe 10 years ago, and some of her stuff now is more popular than it has ever been in her entire life. So I think it totally is changing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about that today. I had to drive. I live in Connecticut. I had to drive up to Massachusetts this morning, and I was listening to that Gaia, GAIA. They
Yeah.
have like a whole
Gaia TV.
like. So I listened to their, yeah,
Yeah.
and it gets into like stuff that is just so cool. Like I want to believe it, but I'm just not completely there yet.
Yeah.
Um, and that was one of the things as I was driving home, I was like, I really hope this stuff is like real and it's growing, and more people are waking up to that, because I think the next consciousness sort of shift that's going to happen is going to be on that energetic emotional level. Where like the sort of like Stone Age caveman with the club, that everything was just brute strength, like that is not sort of going to be like the quote unquote alpha male, which I freaking hate that stuff. Like it's going to be the ones that are more like the emotionally strong, that are going to sort of bring us into this like next phase. But and I just oh go ahead, man.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I get. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I'm like, because I think that's where a lot of, at least my big fear, like when I started my thing, and I see a lot of it out there, that sort of fake spirituality thing, like what people, happens, like you get into it and then you don't really know what's going on. You haven't formed that part of your identity. You don't have like as much confidence in it yet. So it's easier to put on a character, to play the part. You know, I was even gonna shave like my beard off once, and I was like, no, 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 I had this before. I went all wooey, so I'm keeping it now. But you know what I mean? Like, especially like after I started smoking, and I on my cards and stuff, I have I'm a stoner spirited life coach.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, I got to start wearing tie dye. I got to get some Birkenstocks, whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't have to play a character. I can just be myself. I have like I love Ancient Aliens. I don't believe half the shit they talk about, but me and my cousin. So I'm just like my Ancient Aliens shirt, and I'm smoking a whole bunch of weed, I'm watching stuff on Go Blacky Teppy and
Yeah.
the universe and every like it's just yeah, it's amazing. So I think you're right. Like walking through that door because I did this to feel better, and that still hasn't fucking happened yet. I'm just like, all right, I'm cool with it. Like, all right, I'm just like completely full of anxiety, but we're good. We're good. So I think like that's the acceptance thing. So I'm hoping that at some point I don't wake up scared of my own shadow, with every decision I have to make. But yeah, that'll get there. Yeah. But
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. I had this
Yeah.
I had this therapy session where, and I've actually had a couple of them like this, so I'll generalize them, but they're comical in the sense that like in somatic therapy, and Keith, like in the somatic therapy that I do, there's a lot of like just exhaust yourself. You're doing a lot of like just hitting on mattresses or whatever, like soft things, right? Just trying to exhaust yourself to just lower the defense mechanisms that you've built up. And so in some sessions, like I'll just be wailing on stuff just to get rid of that guard, and it will allow for like this, these great cathartic releases, of emotion to just come through. And in those, it'll be so much pain, so much like fuck
Yeah.
grief, and you're just like this fucking sucks, right? In tears, just completely in tears. And then there's a point that happens whatever, not all the time, but there's sometimes a point where it's like you flush it all the way through, at least in that experience, and you get to a stage where you're like this, it's wonderful, it's beautiful. And I remember in those just going from this like sobbing, this uncontrollable sobbing, to then laughter. And it was like I couldn't
Yeah.
distinguish between the laughter and the sobbing. And I was like, I sound fucking insane. Like I sound like the joke. I sound like the Joker, from like how he kind of like has a weird ominous laugh, and he's like, it's like you can tell he's just like so deeply disturbed. But then he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've had a couple of those experiences, and I'm like, God, this is like, what the fuck is going on, But it felt wonderful. But yeah, it's that kind of, and in those moments, I was like, oh, here is the beauty in this suffering, like here it is, like I can touch it for a moment, and those have helped a lot. Um, and just going through like shitty stuff, just being in that kind of cocoon, that dark night that people like to call it, and just remembering like, oh, this is like I'll be a butterfly one day.
Yeah.
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 There, there's a freedom in embracing like the suck. Like that's what we call it, like the
Yeah.
army. Like just embrace the suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because the problem is so I have a real hard time making decisions because of the 40 years of not trusting myself and looking at myself as worthless. So this morning, I have this surgery coming up. I popped a rotator cuff and then
Oh yeah.
a tendon in my bicep. Yeah, so next week I lose my right arm completely for a month.
Oh
I do everything left-handed. I'm a righty, so I am scared shitless about this, dude.
yeah.
Like, it is going to suck. Um, but at least I'll be pretty happy on the meds. But
Just think of me when you're
yeah, and that's
really
like
in it. Just start laughing.
yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, I'm gonna freak my wife out, dude. I'm gonna be sitting there like, yeah, just like miserable and just like start doing that crazy Joker laugh.
Turn on the
Yeah,
Joker. Just turn it on and just start laughing along with it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's gonna be.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I especially like I hate those medications. Like even like the painkillers. Like it feels real good. Like for like the first one, and then for some reason I get angry. I get like just I become a bitch, man. Like I'm so cranky for some reason. So like she'll bring me my dinner and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like I'm just like yelling at her for no reason,
Yeah.
dude. But yeah, so it's gonna freaking suck. But like so I went I picked up all my weed for the next month. Because I don't want to have to like go driving like for an hour with, one arm. And it dawned on me this morning and it immediately went right into anxiety
Mm,
because I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I do it? Do I wait till next week, like right before the surgery? Like, I mean, because I have to do my social media and I got to take my classes and I got to do that and all stuff that I've convinced myself I have to do that I don't have to do. I don't have to do any of this,
yeah.
And one of the things I think it was Alan Watts, he talked about not seeing life as like a journey, a path that we're walking, but as a garden, that we can just wander around wherever we want to, and dude, even to bring this whole thing like full circle, going back to that intuition, like just following that intuitive voice inside to lead me. And I've realized that is so connected to my anxiety. Like when I follow that and do what that voice is like whispering me to do, you know, I just I have the best day, whatever I do. It's just I enjoy myself so much, but when I don't and I go into like, wow, I have to do this and I hate every moment of what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's freaking crazy, man.
like,
So yeah, I that's helped me out so much. Yeah.
or who
Yeah, because
I don't
and again, it's like
I,
oh, go
I don't
ahead,
know
man.
who says it. Maybe it's Alan Watts too, but you don't dance to a song to get to the end, like or something like that, right? Like
Oh, I love that, dude.
I don't
Yeah.
know who said that, but yeah, it's like you're not dancing to you're it's like it's not the point to get to the end of the song, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think of like
That's
the ultimate parent.
yeah.
Like if you if you could just be at the will of your child wherever, like you have no agenda. Doesn't matter if you're trying to get them to school, doesn't matter if you're trying to get them to, you know, a family reunion. Just you let them do whatever they want. Like, can you like would that be the ultimate parent? You know, like if you're able to just totally surrender to the children's meandering, like, you know, like, hey, it's your intuition, it's your excitement. Like, I'm just here to support you in your in whatever you want to do. Like, can you imagine being a parent like that in today's world? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. At that point, I would be really grateful that my kids are in their 20s now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think back, man, and I remember like all the good times, you know, that we had when they were young, and I'm getting like now I'm turning 50 this year, so I'm starting to get nostalgic all of a sudden, which is such a weird feeling. Because this year I'm just like, wow, like I'm starting to watch like old Disney movies that I used to watch as a kid, and just like, like even like the theme song like comes on. I'm like, dude, I remember seeing like watching this like when I was 8. So I don't know. I hope that's not a sign that I'm dying soon. That would suck, but um, yeah, I do not envy like parents with young kids like today. It just feels like a whole different world. I might be completely wrong, but I'm like, man, like I would just be terrified every second. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That is dude, I love that lesson, man. That is so freaking cool. Because that's what it is. Like, I mean, we're coming to the situation as adults that are stressed, like you said, like a million different things going on. And it was the same way. I think the older I get, like the more afraid I get of everything. I heard this comedian once. He said you can always tell somebody that's over 40. And he said, and he stood up on the stool that was up on the stage, and he goes, because if you're over 40, you're freaking out about how I'm getting down right now. And when I watched him do this, I was like, dude, you're gonna fall, man. Like, and I'm like, I've never been like I was a paratrooper. Like I love doing stuff like that, you know. And now like I don't even like going up a ladder, man. You know, not even a step ladder. It's like screw that. So it was like the same thing like when I was raising my kids, but to have that insight to remember to come at the situation like with almost like a childlike mindset. You know what I mean? So that you can experience and then deal with it in the proper way instead of like expecting them to think like an adult.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice, dude. It's freaking awesome. Well, sorry, I gotta get running, man. My wife has dinner coming soon. I don't want to get in trouble, especially now that I'm injured, because now all she's got to do is just punch me in my shoulder.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She knows. Yeah, it's been
Oh
awesome.
yeah, dude, I'm scared to death of her, man. Like she comes from you know the Hatfields and McCoys, um like that old like family feud down in Kentucky or something like that. Like
Oh.
she comes from the McCoy side of the family. Like I think her great aunt has a Bible, the McCoy family Bible that was like passed down through the years. Um yeah, so she scares the shit out of me. So yeah.
Well,
I
we won't
definitely
keep you.
obey.
We won't keep you. No, it's been awesome. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I would love to do this again, man. I want to like keep up with what you guys are doing, and then you know, I hope you guys spread the word with what you guys are doing too, because this is it's incredible.
yeah. Let's do another one. Well, I had an amazing
Yeah.
time chatting with you, and I feel like we could talk for days. You know, we got way more things to talk about.
Oh hell yeah, yeah. That's why I feel bad like saying like, oh, I gotta go because I can go for like a couple more hours, dude. You know, like yeah,
Yeah,
it's so cool. I've never had like a community before. Well, since the military that I'm like you know, like I keep telling my wife, like I made more friends, you know, like I haven't done this in years, and it's so cool to be able to like
yeah.
talk to people again.
Oh yeah, it is. I know, and it's hard because there's not a close community of like-minded folks that I have in my like vicinity, and even Mike is, 1,000 miles away. You know, we don't live so, and it's all happening online, but it's fun. It's like invigorating to chat with and talk with folks who have, the same type of thinking. So yeah,
Yeah,
let's do it again.
sounds good, man. All right, dude, it was great meeting you guys. Like I said, I am so psyched with what you guys are doing, so it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, appreciate that. Like,
Yes,
we'll link your stuff in our notes, and we'll put you in into everything that we posted on, because I think, yeah, what you're doing is awesome too, and we need more people like you in this world.
thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right.
All right, sounds good, guys.
Until next time.
All right, take it easy. Have a good one.
See ya.